If we're going to move on here, second pick of the draft, and honestly, you can argue maybe it's not as unique as the Senja pick, but it's up there in terms of them drafting Ryan Sloan because they way overslotted this guy by a ton. They're giving him what's reported about $3 million, which I'm going back and looking at Seattle's draft picks in the Dipoto era. Not only do they seldomly take high school arms high, but the guys they have taken high, the money they've gotten has not even been close to this. Like Walter Ford and Michael Morales got a little over $1 million. Sam Carlson got $2 million all those years ago. But we're talking about $3 million for a guy that they clearly believe has the chance to be an absolute dude. So, like, what is it about Ryan Sloan the Mariners love?
Well, first of all, I would actually liken it to the Sam Carlson deal, just with inflation. I would imagine this is a pretty similar value when you stack up the two bonus pools and where things have gone. So they paid a lot of money for Sam Carlson, and they ended up drafting like a 24-year-old Wyatt Mills in that class just to make the numbers make sense. So in terms of like where Ryan Sloan fits in Walter Ford and Sam Carlson, like he's clearly the most put together pitching prospect they've ever landed. I mean, Ryan Sloan is one of the most put together pitching prospects from a high school standpoint that I've ever seen. I mean, he's literally bigger than every starting pitcher that is currently on the Seattle Mariners roster. He has 5 or 10 pounds on Logan Gilbert and everyone below that. So from that standpoint, he looks like a guy that could throw 180 innings a year. And right now he throws the fastball in the zone. He doesn't walk people. He's got a changeup. He's got a slider. The only thing that I have hesitation with Ryan Sloan is he doesn't spin the ball particularly well. I don't think he's ever going to possess a real weapon of a slider. It might be up there with like Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, like a solid, I would call those guys above average sliders. So for that reason, I don't think for me, and listen, this is just my opinion, I haven't seen ace potential out of him yet, but he looks like a guy that could move very, very, very quickly, and he could be in the big leagues by the time, he's 22 years old. It would not surprise me if Ryan Sloan is a big leaguer in 2020. What would that be? 2026, like late 2026, early 2027. That may be a little rich, but he should move quick.
How closely on most boards were Senja and Sloan? Like pretty close, right?
I had Senja at 20. And I had Sloan at 19, or excuse me, I had Senja at 20. I had Sloan at 29. I think Pipeline had Senja at like 16 or 17, and they had Sloan at like 19 or 20. So, yeah, I think I was actually one of the lower evaluators on Sloan in the industry. I mean, I think almost everybody had him in the 15 to 25 range, and I had him just outside of that. But, yeah, I mean, clearly, by all accounts, the Seattle Mariners drafted 2 of the top 30 picks in the class. I don't think there's any hesitation with that.
And the other thing I was seeing too, while poking around with Ryan Sloan, is that he's a Wake Forest commit. Is there like a personality type that comes along with that teams resonate with?
That's a great question. I think teams resonate with Wake Forest pitchers themselves. I don't know if they resonate with guys that are committed to Wake Forest. Like, Wake Forest just gets dudes, right? Like, you have to be a curious type of a pitcher. You have to want to learn about the art and the craft of pitching to be committed to Wake Forest. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, you don't see anybody going to Wake Forest that's like, I know how to pitch. I know how to shape my pitches. Leave me alone. I'm going to do my thing. So in that respect, yeah, there's probably a little bit of a selling point. But I think it more applies to guys coming out of Wake Forest rather than guys committed to Wake Forest.
I've got 2 more Sloan questions for you. One's quick, and one is, why do you think he fell as far as he did? Was it all about a lot of teams thought he wasn't going to sign?
So my hypothesis is, and I don't have this from anybody, but my hypothesis is Seattle took Jurangelo St. at 15. They knew their slot. I am guessing that when Ryan Sloan got by, I would probably say the Braves at 24, Seattle picked up the phone and said, hey, we're coming up on slot value, pick 28, pick 29. We don't know if you guys have any suitors in this range, 25 to 28. We will guarantee Ryan $3 million if you pull him down to 55. And once the first round was done, then it was kind of a done deal, right? Like nobody else was going to overslot him in that range. So I think there's also just a general admiration between Sloan and the front office. It seems like they really, really get along. It's clear that they talked a ton leading up to the draft and in draft interviews and at the combine and everything in between. So it's probably just a comfort thing. And it sounds like Ryan probably just wanted the pitch for the organization.
And then my other question about Sloan with that is, so we listened to Scott Hunter give his pre-draft media session about a week or so before the draft, and he talked about we're actually looking at the potential of taking a high school pitcher in the first round this year. And he said, I know that's not something we've really done in the past, but with the way this draft may shake out, we're looking at it. Now, they ended up taking Senja, but my question with that is, when he, like, to your best guess, when he was talking about that, do you think they were referencing Ryan Sloan, or was it more about they're interested in guys like Caminiti or Mayfield too?
Yeah, the Caminiti talk really fizzled for me in talking to different people about 2 or 3 weeks before the draft. I don't think he was ever realistically in play, and you saw where he landed. I mean, Caminiti fell all the way to 24. I think there was just some red flags about that profile in terms of his ability to spin the baseball and develop a fastball value that pushed him down to where he did. So to answer your question, I think the only circumstance where Ryan Sloan was going to be picked number 15 was if Senja was off the board, was if Savage was off the board. And even then, I think the Mariners were probably preparing for a very weird situation where someone like Connor Griffin was still on the board or Nick Kurtz was still on the board. Neither one of those things came close to happening. So I just, in my opinion, there was probably several roadblocks in the way before Ryan Sloan was going to be option A at pick 15.